Evening and welcome to everybody. And this is our last in our 1GB series of the marketing and business webinars. I'll talk more about what we'll be doing in the future a little bit later. But we've got a great hour ahead this evening, looking at the hot topic of email communications and Mailchimp. So your ability to generate sales and revenue for your business is driven by your ability to communicate with them. And of course, one of the most powerful communication tools available to all businesses is email marketing. This evening's webinar will be highlighting some of the key principles in using the world's largest email marketing tool, Mailchimp, known to all of us, I'm sure now, as well as looking at how to best use email marketing to build those customer relationships. So if you're already email marketing or are looking to develop your communications, I think this session should provide you with plenty of useful takeaway tips. To navigate our way through this, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back Robin. Great to see you again. Robin Adams, for those of you that attended our first webinar, is from CHIMP Answers, and he's our presenter tonight. We're really lucky to have you back again. Thank you so much, Robin. Robin, for those of you that weren't in the first one, he's an experienced marketeer of long standing, helping many businesses to create and implement an effective marketing strategy for themselves and to navigate their way through the many options open to them to succeed in their marketing and communications. Robin is a Mailchimp meister. That's what I'm calling you now. What he doesn't know about Mailchimp just simply isn't worth knowing about. So I know you're the very best of
No pressure.
No pressure, Robin. Before I hand over, don't forget, you've obviously got the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and the chat as well. Please feel free to use the questions. I'm going to be monitoring it throughout the session. But now what I'm going to do, Robin, is hand over to you. I'm going to just put you on the speaker view, which you may or may not be already, but we'll just check on that. And I am going to hand you over. Thanks, Robin.
Fantastic. Right, we'll just do the usual check where I've got actually I've got 5 different screens at the moment, and I just want to make sure. So that's the live feed, so I know when I switch my computers on, I can still see what I'm actually doing and make sure that you guys can see my presentation. So thank you very much for that introduction. You know, kind of like, as you know, for those of you who are at the start, who basically have kind of like done a number of these webinars, hopefully you remember me from the last time when I was talking about the customer journey, and I was talking about how you can basically apply a framework to that customer journey, and there are 8 individual steps that you can actually go through. And you'll take your customers through, and obviously then you can start looking at each of those steps and working out what tools, techniques, and whatever you're going to use in each of those steps. So hopefully those of you who were on that first webinar found that really useful. I know a number of you came back and downloaded afterwards the presentation, and also a copy of the actual little basically guide that I pulled together that you could complete to do it. So I hope that was useful. So that's kind of like one side of my business. The other side of my business is Mailchimp, hence the name of the business, CHIMP Answers. And what I've done today is I've got a presentation which I've done a couple of times before. And one of the challenges when you're talking about Mailchimp is that your own experiences of Mailchimp are going to be very individual. The challenges that you face, the problems that you face, a lot of them are going to be very specific to the way that you use it. And it's probably when we get into the Q&A session at the end that you'll be going, oh, what about this? Or what about this? And it's going to be just about your account, and other people are not going to have the same kind of like level of experience. So what I'm going to suggest to do is I'll remind you about this on a regular basis, but I run a free Facebook group on Facebook, surprisingly enough, called Mailchimp Answers. It's completely free. It's a user group. It's the largest in the world. There's 9,500 people in there. And don't worry, it's not that congested. But if you've got specific questions that I don't get to answer today in this session or in the Q&A session, obviously I've got no major issue if you want to email me, but a great way of getting answers, not just from me, but from other Mailchimp users who may be experiencing the same thing as you, is to go to that group. So if you go to Mailchimp Answers on Facebook, just type in go to Facebook, do a search, Mailchimp Answers, you'll see the Facebook group, I'll accept your application, and as a consequence, you'll be able to get into the group and get me. Right, okay, I could sit here and warble on forever, but you only get so long to actually sit, you know, kind of like to do this on a Thursday evening. So what I'm going to do is going to kick in the presentation. Hopefully you'll be able to see everything and basically go through. And as Julia was saying, what I'm going to do is to essentially give you the, what's the word for? I'll go through the presentation. If you've got any questions, make sure that they're questions that you put into the Q&A section. Hopefully you're familiar with this process now. Try not to put them into chat, because if you put them into chat, then we might miss them. So drop them into the Q&A and we'll try and get as much as we can done before the end of the actual presentation. All right, but presentation itself. So this is the point where I see whether computer technology actually works. So I'm now going to just do this. And hopefully, if I can just kind of like get some form of confirmation back from everyone that you can actually see this, just gonna just change this. So hopefully now you can see me. In fact, unfortunately, because of the way my computer's set up, I'm just gonna double check. Right, could you all see that? Could you all see my slides? Because if you could, then I know it's working. Let's do, I understand why. Let's do share screen. And what we're going to do is do that. Right, so hopefully now you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? It says just go to participants. Let's see, we're going to chat. Let's see, hopefully you can see my screen now. Great, okay, brilliant. Right, what I'm going to do now is press play. So we go straight into the presentation and I can now, I've got that set up. Sorry, slight error there, I had to do this. So let's get the chat window. Got the chat window set up, got the question answer window set up. Right, let's go and do a whistle stop tour through what I would classify as the 9 mistakes of Mailchimp. Okay, so let's do it over here. Yeah, so basically, these are the 9 mistakes of Mailchimp that I've picked up, having played around with Mailchimp, used Mailchimp for a fair amount of time, and helped an awful lot of people make the most of their Mailchimp. Okay, so just a bit of background, if you're not familiar with Mailchimp, Mailchimp's been around in one form or another for about 20 years. It's kind of like, it's almost a dinosaur when it comes to the internet age. It is without doubt the biggest email marketing system, or as it's called, EMS, in the world, and has got over 10 million users. All right. In terms of small businesses, it's probably got 3 times as many users as any other tool that is out there. All right. So it is well established and very kind of like big. And it's this because it's good at what it does, which makes it easy to create and send emails and get them delivered. It's free for pretty much the entire functionality. They've made some changes recently, but certainly for them, you know, if you've got a list of under 2,000, you can actually use it for free and have access to most of the functionality that's there. And it's robust, obviously, because of the fact it's been around for that amount of time. It's built on a very solid platform. And again, because of the fact it's been around for a while, it integrates and plays well with a lot of other systems out there. So you can integrate Mailchimp into your website. You can integrate it into, you can connect it to Facebook adverts if you're doing that, and have custom audiences that feed from Mailchimp. So it's very, very flexible from that point of view. But it's not perfect. You know, it does the job intended well, but it isn't a perfect system. There isn't no such thing as a perfect system in my book. But in reality, most of the problems that people have with Mailchimp are not because of Mailchimp. It's because of them. It's because of the users. All right. So what I'm going to do is go through 9 mistakes that I've identified that will basically, for want of a better word, give you a good understanding of the types of things that you should be looking to avoid when you're using Mailchimp. Okay. So look at the 9 most common, and I'm not going to do them in any particular order, but to be honest, I could quite easily make 29 of the most common mistakes, because there's lots of things that come up again, but these are kind of like the big juicy ones that you need to be kind of like aware of if you're using Mailchimp on a regular basis. So before that, I just want to give you a little bit of information about who I am and why I am here and what makes me the chimp champ, as it were. There's a couple of pictures of me and my 2 different personas. whether it be scuba diving or whether it be a big American football fan, two of the things that I love to do. So I've been in marketing my entire life. Literally, I got a degree in marketing back when there weren't that many places that you could get a degree in marketing. And over the last 11 years, I've worked exclusively with small businesses, helping them with their marketing. Now, I started using Mailchimp myself about 10 years ago and realized there was a big opportunity 4 years ago for me to really focus on Mailchimp exclusively, hence the name of my business, CHIMP Answers. And it's all about me providing Mailchimp training, implementation, advice, consultancy, Mailchimp strategy. That's where my heart is basically making sure that people use Mailchimp the right way. And I'm really passionate about that, using it the right way. About the same time as a niche down, I launched the Mailchimp Answers Facebook group, which I've mentioned. It's now the largest Mailchimp community in the world. Either you can go to Mailchimp Answers on Facebook and request access, or if you want to visit chimp.tips/FB group, you'll be redirected to that particular page in Facebook without any problems. Okay. Right. Ooh. This is, I see what the problem is. Sorry, I've had a number of people who turn around and said that they can't see what's going on. So I'm just going to stop the share. Let's do a different share. Let's do this one. Let's share this screen. That should now be working. So I've just realized you can all see my pop-ups and you can't actually see the presentation. So let's go back to the presentation. Hopefully now that's a little bit better. You can actually see things. I do apologize if you were getting lots of useless stuff on the screen there and weren't actually seeing my delightful slides that I've created. So I'm just going to double check into chat and make sure. There we go. Right. Okay. So Facebook group, mentioned that. And pretty much it'd be fair to say I have been there, done that, and got the Chimp t-shirts. I have got a number of Mailchimp t-shirts. Nice Mailchimp hat, kind of like, nice little Mailchimp. So I basically, pretty much Mailchimp is my day-to-day existence, and I get to know it quite well, okay? And this is important as well. There's a lot of people out there who claim to know Mailchimp, and some of them probably do know it really well. But if you want to separate the people who really know Mailchimp from those people who think they know Mailchimp, basically look out for people who are classified as being a certified Mailchimp partner and expert. What that means is I've actually been certified Mailchimp by Mailchimp. They've basically run me through a test. It's not an easy test, and I'll be honest, I didn't pass the first time, but from the sound of things, not many people at all pass it the first time. But I'm now officially certified as a Mailchimp expert, which means that the advice that I give is based on me actually knowing Mailchimp and not thinking I know Mailchimp. And I'm also a Mailchimp partner, which basically means that when I have access to your account, I get access to priority support and other bits and pieces like that. So it makes life a little bit easier for a lot of the customers that I'm working with. Right, anyways, enough about me. Let's focus in on those Mailchimp mistakes. Okay, so what's the first mistake that I see regularly from people? The biggest one. And this is where people have more than one audience or list in their Mailchimp account. Now, we all understand the need, hopefully, that you want to be segmenting your audience. Key element of success, as far as I'm concerned, in marketing is segmentation. The ability to be able to be specific to a part of your audience who have something in common is essential for success. So it's, kind of like if you know that certain women are drinking certain types of wine, men are drinking different types of wine, then you want to be able to segment and communicate to those two different groups, because the messages you're going to send are going to be specific and they're going to be much more impactful because of that. Okay, so to be able to do that in Mailchimp and to send different emails, you need to segment them. And the key question that is always asked is, what's the best way of doing it? Well, most people start by segmenting their Mailchimp account through separate audiences. Now, fortunately, this doesn't really happen as much anymore. And the reason being is that Mailchimp are basically set up the free account that you can only have one audience. But it used to be you could create lots of audiences. And if you used Mailchimp a lot in the past, certainly prior to maybe 12, 18 months ago, chances are you may have a number of audiences in your account. And what you've done is you've segmented your database through audiences. Now, the audience is the core building block of Mailchimp. People unsubscribe or subscribe to a list or audience, and you send emails to people who are in your list audience. But unless you've really got a good reason, you should only have one audience in Mailchimp. Now, as I said, unfortunately, most people do segment with multiple audiences, but this causes problems if you want to send an email to everyone. And to be quite frank, that's just one. There's lots of other issues. In fact, I've got a blog post on my website, which is probably the most popular blog post I've ever written, which has basically got 11 reasons why you should have one audience. I'll give you one specific example. GDPR. We all love GDPR. We've all heard the phrase. We've all bounced around that. All right. If you have two audiences, which are basically however you've created those two audiences, and you've got the same person on both of those audiences, and they unsubscribe from one audience, well, technically, they should actually be then unsubscribed from the other audience. But the problem is that you can't connect and unsubscribe from one audience to another. So therefore, you manually need to go in to do it, and that's if you remember to do it. And if you don't, then technically speaking, you're actually contravening GDPR regulations because someone said they don't want to receive your information and you're still sending it to them. All right, so that's one of the reasons, but there's a whole load of other reasons why you should only have one audience. Now, if you think about it, why do we have multiple audiences? Because you want to segment. Well, in actual fact, the solution is to have one audience or one list, but use something called groups or tags to segment that audience. Now, tags are really useful to segment your database, as are groups. They basically do the same thing. You can assign a tag to an individual, and that allows you to, at some point in the future, target those people who've got a specific tag in a specific way. So, for example, if you've got a number of people who you know are really interested in, say, sparkling wine. Now, again, I'm sitting here. I don't know your markets anywhere near as well as you, but hopefully this is a decent example. If you know someone's interested in sparkling wine, you could tag them as being interested in sparkling wine. And as a consequence, the emails that you would be able to send to them would be specifically about sparkling wine because you know they're interested. Conversely, if they're not interested in sparkling wine, it's pointless wasting your time sending them emails. So the benefits of being really focused, that's where this is all about. And this is where you need to use either tags or groups to segment your audience, right? They allow you to basically segment and split based on interests or other factors. You can choose how you want to segment your audience. It's your audience, okay? But you've got to make sure that you've got the right people in the right group. Segmentation, as far as I'm concerned, is the key to success because segmentation leads to relevance and relevance gives you the results. So you want to basically have one audience and lots of tags to actually succeed. And what I recommend is that whenever you have people sign up to your audience, whether it's through a form, whether it's through a landing page, whether it's through an integration with a CRM system, whether it's through an embedded form on your website, whatever it is, you should be looking to tag them at that point of sign up. Because usually if you've got a specific point of sign up, it's usually talking about one specific thing. So you could have a landing page saying, are you interested in sparkling wines? Well, someone who completes that landing page and completes the form on it, they are going to be interested in sparkling wines. So you might as well tag them as interested in sparkling wines at the point they tell you. Don't try and kind of like do it down the track. And that's certainly one of the things that I do religiously with every single way that someone can get into my Mailchimp audience. I make sure that they're tagged. And I do that with all my customers as well. And it means that they can identify and be very segmented in their communication. All right, so number one, don't have more than one audience unless you've got a really, really, really good reason. And there's not that many good reasons to do it. Okay, second mistake that I see people do. I call this wanton chimp abuse. We don't want you to mess with the chimp. What do I mean? Well, Mailchimp does one thing really, really well. It does actually a number of things quite well, but the one thing it's there for is email. It sends emails, which means that anything that you do that prevents Mailchimp from being able to send those emails and get those emails into inboxes, it is going to view as a very, very bad thing. To the point where it's actually got an inbuilt protection system. I call it the Mailchimp Cops. It's called Omnivore, which basically stops people from trying to cheat or to game it. And it will mean that you are found out. So what am I talking about in terms of messing with the chimp? What have I seen people do? Right, do not add emails into Mailchimp that you know are bad or have not specifically opted in, all right? Now, obviously, this is kind of like something that I know a lot of disreputable people do, all right? We don't want you to do this. If someone hasn't opted in, from a GDPR point of view, you shouldn't be adding them to an email list anyway. But unfortunately, I see people do that. So please, if they've not opted into your communication, they should not be added to your Mailchimp list, because Mailchimp will know. Don't spend spammy emails. Don't just send an email, don't send an email every day with the same message again and again and again. Mailchimp is not going to like that. Mailchimp will know. And if you're sending spammy emails, that means that you're going to get a bad reputation as a sender. And as a consequence, you are going to be in a situation where Mailchimp potentially will stop you sending from emails. So make sure when you're sending emails, they're valuable, they're interesting, there's something there for them, okay? Don't add people from networking to your audience without approval. And this goes doubly for LinkedIn. It used to be that you could scrape LinkedIn for a load of your contacts and chuck them into Mailchimp. Again, consent matters. The more consent you can get, the better in terms of getting people into your audience, and that you're going to have much better success. You're going to have higher open rates and higher engagement. And that's what email marketing is about. It's about getting high open rates and high engagement. Okay. Now, the fact is, if you do upload these people from networking, Mailchimp doesn't sit there and go, oh, that's a bad email. I know that. But they'll find out, because you'll have loads of people who are complaining, and then Mailchimp will come and slap you on the wrist. Mailchimp will protect itself, so you've got to make sure that you're working with it and not against it. And that means being above board and ethical with your email marketing. So again, do not add people to your Mailchimp database unless they have opted in to receive your communication and they know what they're going to get. Yeah? Very important. Consent is important in this situation. Okay, so the next Mailchimp mistake, number 3, no welcome mat. Now, the welcome email is the most important email you will ever send. All right? When someone joins your email list, they're telling you that they're into you. They're telling you that they want to, they've taken something that's very precious to them nowadays, which is that's their email address, and they've given you their email address. And they've said, will you please take care of my email address and give me interesting stuff? If you'd offer them a kind of like a voucher or a discount to go on the list, they obviously want to do that. But that email's precious to them. They don't want you to mess around with it. But they're also saying that they're interested in you. They're saying, I like you now. Okay, so why wouldn't you respond immediately to that? Why wouldn't you send them a welcome email or a series of welcome emails? It's like meeting the girl of your dreams, and then her slipping her phone number into, under your hand just before she walks away. And then you sit there and don't give her a ring for 3 weeks. What was the point of that? She was saying she was interested in you at that point. Why would you wait 3 weeks to do it? Why would you actually even wait for you to get to the point where you manually had to send that person an email? You just want it to happen automatically. When someone joins your list, you need to reply immediately, because essentially what they're saying is at that point, they are hot for you, which basically means that you need to have a automated welcome email set up, and Mailchimp will do this. Even on free accounts, you can set an automated welcome email. All right, so what do we need to know about welcome automations? Well, they need to be immediate. They need to be directly linked to why someone signed up. So you need to, again, as I said previously, segment at sign up and use something like tags to identify them so that you can respond straight away. So, for example, at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to get a copy of these slides. I've got a little process set up. There's a form that I'll basically direct to you. You can put your email address in and you'll get it emailed to you straight away. that form tags you when you put your details as Wines of Great Britain 9 Mailchimp mistakes campaign. All right, so I know that you've signed up, which then means in my Mailchimp account, I've got a trigger that says when someone is assigned the Wines of Great Britain 9 Mailchimp mistakes tag, send them the email, which has got the presentation in. That's why you want to set this up, okay? You want to make sure that it's signed up. Obviously, you need to make sure that you are being transparent with people, make sure that they know who you are, and they want to know what makes you different. Why is your email better than anyone else's? Why is your business better than anyone else's? And they also ideally needs to be interactive. So what I mean by interactive, it means that they need to be able to do something. They need to possibly click to go and look at your social media. It may be that they get an opportunity to reply, or you're directing them to something on your website, a blog post or whatever. But this is important because one of the things that email providers like Gmail, like Yahoo, like AOL or whatever do is they want to make sure that the emails that goes to someone's inboxes are valuable and valid. And one of the ways that they work that out is by how people react to those emails. All right. So if I send you an email and you don't open it, and you don't look at it or click, then chances are that that's going to send a signal to your inbox provider that my emails aren't interesting, which means the next time I send an email, I'm more likely to be put into the spam folder or in the promo folder from Gmail's point of view. But if you can get someone to click on them, if you can get someone to actually engage with them, well, hell, the next time an email gets in, the inbox provider is going to go, I remember last time you clicked on a link and you did this. So that means you're engaged and interested in these emails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that these emails get into the inbox in the future. That's why a welcome email is important, because not only does it allow you to build a relationship straight away when someone is interested in you, but it allows you to train the inbox providers out there that you are a good emailer. That's what matters. And remember, if you get that email out straight away, statistics have proven that those types of welcome emails are 4 times more likely to be opened and 7 times more likely to be clicked, because people know why they're receiving it, because they've just given you their email. So speed of response is really, really, really important. You want to make sure that you're taking advantage of it, because as far as I'm concerned, the welcome email is the most important email that you will ever send. Okay, so mistake number 4. A clean chimp is a happy chimp. What do I mean by this? Well, the fact is that your data is valuable, and you want to make sure that your audience is engaged and opening and liking your stuff. As I said previously, that matters. But if you've got people who aren't opening your emails, that's not good. So what I want you to start thinking about is those people who are on your database, who are receiving your emails and just never open them. I call them zombies, all right? You've got to stop hoping that they open, and you actually need to develop a specific plan that is going to keep your list clean and to get rid of those people who aren't engaged. Now, a couple of months ago, I did what I called a 5-day zombie kill challenge. And it was basically 5 days challenge where people would go through and I would show them how they get rid of that actual, how they get rid of the zombies on their list, or certainly how they manage those. Now, I'm planning to open that course up again in another month's time. So if you do sign up to get a copy of this, you'll be put onto my email list and you'll be able to see when I actually launch that. And I think that would be certainly something that's worthwhile. Obviously, I'll also talk about it in the Facebook group. But you really do need to keep your Mailchimp list clean, because a clean chimp is a happy chimp. Okay? So you want to do is you want to use segments to identify those people who have not engaged or opened in emails. You essentially want to send re-engagement emails, giving them a chance to say whether they're in or out. I call this the kill or cure solution. So you basically give a zombie, you send them an email that says, hey, I know you've not really engaged much in my emails in the past, and I understand that, you know, they're maybe not right for you. I'd rather you told me that A, you weren't interested, in which case, great, I can get you off my list, or say, actually, you know what, I still want to receive your stuff, in which case, great, keep engagement and they'll still open your emails and still be valuable. So make sure you look at that as an option. And obviously offering an incentive to keep them engaged is not necessarily a bad thing. certainly, you know, kind of like dropping them if you keep on our list, here's a £5 voucher or a, you know, 10% discount code. Things like that can make a difference. Then those people who don't open, who don't engage, who literally are zombies, kill them off, get rid of them off your list, manually unsubscribe them, because chances are they're not going to engage and be opened in the future. The fact is, your email list is a massive part of your business. You need to keep it trim and clean. All right, now we have a public service announcement in regards to GDPR. The fact is, GDPR is here. It wasn't a one-off thing. It's been now around for, you know, kind of, I think it's now 2 years, just over 2 years, GDPR kicked in at the end of May in 2018. So we've just had it for over 2 years. When someone is on your list, you need to be clear why they're on your list, and you need to know at sign up that they've agreed to it. All right. You need to make sure that when they're signing up, they know what they're signing up for. And they do need to ideally know and be able to look at a valid privacy policy on your website. Obviously, they need to opt out easily, which fortunately Mailchimp makes very easy. So Mailchimp obviously requires you to have an unsubscribe link in every email you send. So they automatically get unsubscribed. And you also, bottom line is, the fact is, I talked about GDPR an awful lot. I spent a lot of time making sure I understood from an email marketing point of view what it was. The fact is, I'm not going to lie to you, as with anything when it comes down to the law, it's not black and white. There is a lot of interpretation. There is a lot of grey areas. But what I say to all of my clients is that you need to be responsible and ethical in your data collection and in your email marketing as a whole. If you are being responsible and ethical, then at least you can hold your hands up saying, I'm trying to do the right thing. And certainly the impression I get, certainly speaking to one or two people, is certainly that's a hell of a lot better than a lot of people who are basically just ignoring GDPR and just carrying on willy-nilly. All right, so you need to make sure, as long as you're responsible and ethical in your email marketing, then generally speaking, you are not going to fall foul. All right. So mistake number 5. Now, if those of you who are on the presentation that I did a couple of month and a half ago, I think it was, this will kind of like ring true. And this is making sure that you understand what happens next. Now, what happens next is certainly my mantra for marketing. And it's something you need to think about, because every email that you send should be either an email that's developing the customer relationship, or that an email is purely about your branding and saying why you're great. Okay? So you need to ask yourself every time you send an email, what's the purpose of this email? If you're in business, it's either a brand or response. Brand is an email that's got no measurement. It's just something to position yourself so people understand and see what makes you different. But in my book, you need to really focus on the response type emails. These are emails where you want someone to take a specific action. Now, in my book, too many people out there are using purely brand focused emails. They're doing lots of nice soft marketing, as I call it, but you're not actually asking people to take an action, to take a step somewhere. And that's something that I think you always need to be aware of. Every response email you send, and you should be sending more, should have a clear next step, and surprisingly enough, step after that, and a step after that, and so on and so forth. And this is where it blends in with what I was talking about, the avatar's path, the customer path that I talked about, kind of like, a month and a half ago. You need to understand what their journey is and what's the next step. So when you've sent them an email, what do you want them to do? Obviously, you want them open to it, but when they're reading it, what's the purpose? Why are you asking them to do something like that? Okay, so moving swiftly on, this is a short one. This one, I always do this. Don't press send. This is my number 6 mistake, okay? So what do I see that? Well, when you're sending on-demand campaigns, i.e. these are just ones that you've written and you want to send, I want to send them now, all right? It's very easy to press send when you're ready to go. You've planned them, you've designed them, you've tested them. It's like, great, I want to send go. So you go, I spent ages on that email. I'm really proud of it. I just want it done. So I'm going to press go now. But the thing is, virtually no emails are that time sensitive. If you were to send an email today, now, and send it, say, in 20 minutes time, there would be no appreciable difference between two of them. Okay, so from that point of view, they're not time sensitive. So instead of pressing send, and unfortunately you can only do this on the paid for Mailchimp accounts, but schedule it for 15 minutes in the future. All right, what this allows you to do, it gives you time and space so that you can have a chance to think about it. The number of times I've pressed schedule 15 minutes, gone off to have a cup of coffee, and as I'm literally making the cup of coffee, I've remembered, oh crap, I needed to put something into that. So it means suddenly I can pause it, go in, change the email, and I know it's right. So please try not to press send and get that instant rush of endorphins from pressing the big send button. Give yourself a chance, schedule it, then come back to it in 15 minutes time, and hopefully if there's any problems or any things that you come up, they'll come up when your brain stops thinking about it. It's always the way the brain works. When you stop thinking about something, suddenly something pops into it and you go, oh, I know what I need to do. All right, so mistake number 7. This is a controversial one, but I will stand by it. The mistake is that everyone seems to think that their emails need to be pretty. Right, as far as I'm concerned, emails do not need to be pretty. Now, I'll be honest, this is a generalization, but the fact is that if you're spending hours and hours and hours at getting your email looking pretty, as opposed to spending hours and hours and hours on what's actually in the email, the content, then you are missing a big, big opportunity. Emails are about getting the message across. And as I said previously, in most instances, they're a step on a journey somewhere. So you need to be concentrating on the message and the audience, thinking about the words that you've got. Think about the best emails that you've received in the last week. Do you want to know the best email I received in the last week? I had someone who turned around and sent me an email, my best mate, saying, are we on for golf on Monday? And I was like, yes, that's a fantastic email. There was no images at all. The thing that mattered to me was that I was receiving an email from someone who I knew what the subject matter was, and literally it was the content of the email that brought a smile to my face, not the fact it had lots of pretty pictures. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that if you're a visual business, you can't use images. Certainly a lot of you are in a business of being able to want to put pictures of wine or pictures of your vineyards or whatever in your emails. But don't go over the top, because the more an email is designed, the harder it is for the different types of email programs out there, whether it be tablet or phone, whether it be Android or Apple, whether it be Mac or PC, and the various programs. They all look at emails slightly differently, and trying to get something to match up across them is a nightmare. So don't spend too much time trying to create an email that looks stunning, because I guarantee that you'll get much more benefit from an email if you spend all that time concentrating on the message, making sure it's powerful, making sure it resonates with people. That's what is going to make your email marketing much more successful. And relating to how it looks, don't forget mobile. This is mistake number 8 of 9. Mobile matters. In my books, mobile matters massively. There's try saying that 3 times very quickly. Mobile matters massively. Mobile matters massively. Mobile, whatever. Okay. It's not, you don't need to hear me do that. I do apologize. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that the majority of emails are read on the phone. In fact, over 50% of emails are opened on a phone for the first time, and over 2/3 of emails are opened on a phone at some point. So if you're going to design your emails, you need to make damn sure that your emails work on a mobile phone display. Okay. Now, unfortunately, Mailchimp's default design tool is set up for desktop. So you need to test and preview in mobile. You need to send it to yourself. Not perfect, but worthwhile. And you can use things like inbox preview, which will allow you to look at the various things. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're reading your stats to see how many people read your emails on the phone. If you go into your account, if you go into audience, you can basically look at your audience report and it will show you. So for example, 2 recent campaigns that I had for my customers, one of them had 80% opened on their phone. The other one only had 23% opened on their phone. So what you need to make sure is that you're designing your emails so that they look good on desktop, but they also look good on phone. because the fact of the matter is that the majority of people who are receiving your emails will be getting your emails onto their phones first. Okay, so make sure that you're bearing that in mind. Okay, mistake number 9, the last one, who. You need to know your who. An email needs 3 things. Simply, to send an email needs 3 things. It needs a message, it needs a sender, in other words you, and it needs a recipient. And the thing is, bad emails are ones that forget about the recipient and are all about the sender. The fact is, the who matters more than anything. You really, really need to, if you want to succeed at any form of marketing, and especially email marketing, you need to have a detailed understanding of your audience. That is above all. You need to identify specific avatars and speak to them in specific terms and use that across your marketing. Because if you know your avatar, you know what their hopes and fears are, you know what's going through their mind. You know why they're interested in you. You know what's going to tick the box for them. You know what their objections are likely going to be. And you probably know the questions they're going to ask. So you might as well answer them before they ask them. Saves a lot of time. And what that means is that you can focus your email completely on them and talk to them in voice and terms that resonate with them. I always jokingly say when I talk about websites, I say, whose is that website? And then my business, and someone turns around and goes, that's my website. It's like, no, it's not your website. It's your customer's website. Yeah? It's your customer's website. And it's the same with emails. When you send someone an email, it is not your email. It is essentially their email because they're the one who are reading it. They're the one reacting it. If you spend all your time talking about yourself and not talking about what they can get out of knowing you, you are going to struggle. You're going to not succeed. Email, just like any form of marketing, is making sure that you are engaging with the people that you are speaking to and talking to them in their language. It's not about you. I don't know whether you've heard the phrase, there's the rule of 3 on websites. All right. Look at your website. If you use if you use I once, you should be using the word you 3 times on your website. So instead of saying I or we are this, we are that, that's talking about you. It's like, no, people want to talk about themselves. So you want to make sure that your website and your emails are focused on what the recipient can get, not what you want to tell them. Okay? The fact is, we can all sit here and blame technology as much as you like when it doesn't work. But in most instances, it's not actually the technology's fault. It's us, because we've forgotten who we're speaking to. And that, in my book, is the fundamental rule of marketing. All right? If you can't focus on who you're communicating with and speak to them in their terms, you will not succeed. It just won't happen. If I want to go and play golf tomorrow, I don't say to my wife, oh, I love golf, I'm brilliant at golf. I'm not, by the way, you know, and golf is going to be fantastic. I say to her, you know what? I'd like to play golf tomorrow. Do you know what that means? It means you get 3.5, 4 hours of me out of the house. How cool is that? What I've done is I've spun it from being about me to about her. And that's what we need to do in marketing. You need to spin it so that you're looking at it from your customer's point of view. It really is that important. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the #1 rule of marketing. It's not about you, it's about your customers. Okay, so wrapping up, there's our 9 Mailchimp mistakes. So you should not be having more than one audience or list in your account. You should not be emailing someone who hasn't confirmed and opted in that they want to receive the emails. You should be using welcome emails. If you haven't got a welcome message, you are missing out big time. If you're desperately clinging to people who haven't opened an email for the last 3 years, hoping that they're going to open one in the future, you might be kidding yourselves. Start thinking about cleansing your list. Think about the emails and what you want someone to do when they receive an email from you. Don't press the send button. Give it a chance to settle. Schedule it in the future, and chances are you might remember something that you wanted to put into email that you forgot. Spend more time on what's in the email than what the email looks like, because you will get better results. Don't ignore mobile phones. Mobile matters. And even though Mailchimp don't make it necessarily easy to see what an email looks like on mobile, if you use their preview function, at least you get a pretty good rendition of what it's going to be. And you can start making sure that you're designing it with that in mind. And don't forget the who. Fundamental rule of all marketing is it's about who you're speaking to. It's not about you. And as a consequence, you want to make sure that you're concentrating on that. Okay. So with that in mind, time for questions. I know there's a number of questions we've got, and probably there'll be a load more that comes through type 3. But if you want to get a copy of this presentation, I'm basically go and visit chimp.tips/9 mistakes. That will take you to a page. You'll basically be added to my email list. You'll get relevant Mailchimp emails from me moving forward. You can unsubscribe at any time, but it tells you on that page that that's going to happen because I'm GDPR aware, as it were. So I wanted to make sure that you get a copy of this presentation. Obviously, you'll also get a copy of the video, which will be sent out by Julia afterwards. But if you just want to have a copy of the presentation to use internally to remind you of these key things that you need to do that. Reach out to me if you want to send me an email direct. My email is robin@chimpanswers.com. More than happy to receive those emails. I can't promise that I'm going to be able to give you a direct answer to every question that you've got because, to be quite frank, usually sometimes they can be quite long-winded and they're quite in-depth. Certainly if it's a specific account query, but I'll try and do my best and certainly take advantage of the Facebook group, which is Mailchimp Answers. Just go to Facebook, put Mailchimp Answers in, and there'll be lots of information there. And my website, chimpanswers.com. I try and, kind of like after the Mailchimp website, I personally believe it's one of the most comprehensive resources of information about how to use Mailchimp the right way. If you go there, there's lots of different articles, lots of different videos, lots of different ways of getting more out of Mailchimp that are there. So I certainly recommend if you're a Mailchimp user, use that, get on my list, and I'll basically update you every time I have a new article. So you'll see kind of like how you can take Mailchimp understanding to the next level. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the share. And there's Julia again. Sorry, because when I go on share, I can't see any screens at all. All I see is my presentation and the chat window. So just keep my fingers crossed that people are still there. Right, I'll shut up now and wait for Julia to manage the questions. And she may
absolutely. We've got a few questions coming in, which is great, Robin, for you. Just looking at the chat as well, people are very thought-provoking. You've definitely got a few very effective points to everybody. I know I've been noting them as well. But anyway, let's crack on with the questions. Actually, just coming back to Mailchimp and help with formatting for mobile. What are the main issues in Mailchimp, do you know, on not formatting correctly for mobile?
That's right. Again, part of the problem, again, it comes down to design, as I say, the challenge of making an email look pretty. Because obviously when you're designing most emails, and certainly the majority of email systems out there, or it's kind of like whether it be Mailchimp or its contemporaries, they're all set up to design an email on desktop. So you spend lots of time trying to create an email that looks really pretty on desktop. But to be quite frank, the more time you put on focusing on a desktop design and making a desktop pretty, the more complicated the template, and likely being the more it's not going to look great on mobile, which is why I'm really, really clear and passionate, as you can probably tell, by having a simplistic email. All right, the simpler your email, the more likely it's going to work across all formats. All right, the most successful email marketers in the world are people who don't even put images in their email. They just put text because it's the message that matters more than the image. So the fact is that whenever I'm designing an email, depending on the type of business, I will go in and I will potentially format it for desktop, but I always make sure that I look at a mobile preview in there. And usually, because of the way that it's laid out, I can actually get it that it looks reasonably good on mobile. So there is no simple answer unless you go outside of Mailchimp, and there are a number of, I've just come across a new an email or an email HTML design business that I'll actually design it, and I'm just opening up my browser because it's called Stripo. Never used them before, but a couple of people I know have used them, and they will basically create email templates. And obviously, because this is a professional design business, those templates are probably going to work for mobile, but also for desktop as well. but without going on again and again and again and again. Don't make your emails look too complicated and too pretty, because the prettier and more complicated they are, the harder they are going to, or the more problems you're likely to encounter on the different ways people view them.
Okay, no, that's great. Actually, you know, speaking as someone who uses Mailchimp a bit, I do guilty as charged, and I think Pippa put that in the chat as well. Guilty as charged. You know, we like to represent our brand properly as well, don't we? When we're, you know, so I suppose it's the sort of balance between making sure you've got the brand presence, but without actually putting too much sort of over the top content, visual content. Like.
It's finding the balance. It's whenever you send an email, how is it going to be received? You've got to have as a marketer, you need to have a degree of empathy. You need to be able to see things from other people's point of view. And you need to be able to say, if my customer received this email, what would they think? Would they actually go, scroll, scroll, image, 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 where's the content, scroll, scroll? Or would actually kind of like, do they know what it is? And does it get cut to the chase relatively quickly? And yes, as marketers, we are guilty at times of wanting to prove how clever we are and how many things that we can do, when in actual fact we just really need to crystal dive down into, this is what the message in the email is, this is what's in it for the person reading it. And that's the first thing you should do with any email. What's in it for the person reading it? If there isn't anything, don't send the email.
No harm in having your logo at the top, though.
Oh, no, because logo is important, because that's a stamp of, yes, it's from the person I know. So every email I send has got my logo at the top, because when they open it up, they go, oh, that's from Robin. But once you've got the logo, you know, I always jokingly say the only people who are interested in your logo in detail are you and your mum. No one else cares about your logo. All they do is they go, oh yeah, that's who it is. To be quite frank, if you put your name at the top, not in a logo, probably people would go, oh yeah, that's who it's from, and get through the detail. So don't spend too much time prettying. Oh, is Julia frozen? She might have done. I rambled on way too long. So, right, okay. Right, I'm going to actually take advantage while Julia's there. She's probably going to relog and log back in and out, but I can see the questions as well. I can see the feedback. So, Lucy, you talk about tags. I use tags and therefore able to see who people have been subscribed or interested in, which is great. But is there a way to tag someone that they're not interested in? If so, I can avoid sending emails they're not interested in rather than unsubscribing. Can you do it with on-premises? So this is one of the challenges with Mailchimp, is actually it's not easy to opt out of a tag. In fact, it's bloody difficult. I've tried doing that many, many times. So what I do is I actually create opt-out tags, and I've got a link on my website to an article which talks about link clicks in emails and how you can segment someone by clicking a link in an email. It's not easy, it's not intuitive, and Mailchimp is not an advanced tool like some of the real high-end marketing automation systems, but there are ways of doing it. And if you basically go to my website and search for link clicks in emails, there's an article on my blog post I wrote a couple of months ago which will explain how to actually handle that. So hopefully, Lucy, that answers that. It is one of the challenges, and until Mailchimp kind of like expand their system a little bit, then we've got to be a little bit creative and get around it. Like I said, Mailchimp imperfect.
Robin, thank you for taking over. It would be lovely if, as you said, we are the slaves of technology, aren't we? And thank you. I have just happily ducked out. I know poor Joanna had a couple of issues as well. So thank you. You've been answering a couple of the questions, haven't you?
I've just answered Lucy's at the top.
Lucy's at the top. Perfect. Pip has asked quite an interesting question. From your experience, if an email includes a video, is this a good tool, or does that make no difference?
Right. I will answer that question with a question. When you send an email to someone, what do you want them to do? Well, in most instances, you probably want them to do something. Usually click on something, go to your website, go and look at something, all right? So technically, you can't actually put a video into an email. You can put like an animated GIF or whatever, but when you talk about putting a video in an email, what you're actually talking about is putting an image in an email with a big play button, and when they click on that image, they will then get redirected to your website where the video is going to be. Now, if you look at all of the research, it suggests that one of the biggest reasons someone will click on an email is because of that, is because of a video. So certainly if you've got valuable videos that you want to show people that, again, are with them in mind, it's not about you showcasing and saying, hey, aren't we brilliant? Haven't we got a lovely, you know, an orchard, a nice vineyard or whatever? It's actually something that's going to be valuable to people. Then yes, definitely use videos in your emails. But again, like I said, all you need to do is put a video. Mailchimp actually makes it not too difficult to embed YouTube clips into emails. In actual fact, if you on my email sequence, one of my email sequence emails is about how to actually do that, and I've got a blog post on my website as well. So sorry, this is all about getting people to go to my website. Go look at my website. Go look at my website. But
that's very useful, because we like to use videos where we can sometimes.
Definitely.
And just to add, I don't know whether you saw in the questions, Lucy came back saying, P.S. I should say that I now use tags thanks to previous training I had with Rob.
There we go. There we go.
Now, did you, I don't know whether you had a chance to answer Emily's, whether this is actually something that is probably more you're able to tackle in the on the Facebook the Facebook group. But it says, at the moment I use Mailchimp to create the email design, then export the HTML and insert it into our email provider, Intercom. The code seems to break when doing so. I understand that this may not be the best way of doing this, but our email service provider, Intercom, currently hosts our entire database. That could well be something that other people experience.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is what you're trying to do. That is the purpose of Mailchimp, is not to do that. Mailchimp is about having the system, managing your database, whatever. So what I would suggest in that instance, you want to use a tool like I said, Stripo is a good example of it, somewhere where you can actually create a design which is designed to be exported. The thing about Mailchimp templates is the fact that they're designed for Mailchimp. So one of the things that I find very frustrating is someone comes in the Facebook groups and goes, how do I print this? How do I print an email? And I go, it's an email. It's designed to be an email. It's not designed to be printed. If you want it unprinted, you do something separately to make it printed. So all I can say, there is no answer, unfortunately, Emily, to the Mailchimp issue that you've got. But what I'd recommend is that you look at specific HTML design tools that basically will produce a design for your email, and then you can export it from that tool into the one that you're using, as opposed to using Mailchimp to do that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. One question here from Sastia. Do you have a segmentation or tagging workshop, or is it just a case of going through the Mailchimp help? And I know that this is something that's quite relevant to me as well, because actually segmenting the audience is sometimes the biggest challenge, really, because you have it. What we've done is we put, we've got all these names in an Excel spreadsheet. You import it from, Mailchimp imports it, then you've got to kind of segment it. So where do we start segmenting, and how do we continue?
How do we do it? Right. Well, again, first things first. Hey, well, go look at my website. Sounds bad. Basically, segmentation is so fundamental to Mailchimp that I've actually got I call them the Mailchimp fundies, the fundamentals of Mailchimp, and I've got a post in my website which talks about using tags and talks about how you should do that. Now, in most instances, and this is kind of like this is one of the fundamental things about all email marketing. To do email marketing, you need data. All right, you can't send an email without someone's email address. So you've got to have a database. All right, the biggest, in fact, the number one challenge that every single person comes into the Facebook group talks about, I say every single one, that's a slight exaggeration, so most people talk about, is how do I get data from somewhere into Mailchimp in the right way? So how do I use a form on my website and get it into Mailchimp the right way? How do I use a landing page to get the data into Mailchimp? Because you can't send the emails until it's in Mailchimp. But the problem is that there are so many different website tools, there's so many different other tools out there that can push the data into Mailchimp. And what I say is that you need to have a clear understanding of what different entry points, as I call them, you've got. And basically make sure that any entry point tool that you use allows you to assign a tag when they do that. So for example, Mailchimp's own embedded forms do not allow you to do that, which is why I do not recommend that you use Mailchimp embedded forms. Okay. However, Mailchimp landing pages do allow you to assign a tag when someone completes that form. So you can create a landing page that says, if you're interested in sparkling wine, put your email address in here. And when they complete that form, you can actually set it up so that it automatically tags those people as A, they've completed that form, but B, they're interested in sparkling wine. And if you use that as a general principle, if you've got a form on your website, so for example, WordPress is where most people have got, a lot of people have got their websites. If you're creating a form on a WordPress website, you need to use a form tool that allows you to tag someone to be able to, and assign a tag when they've completed a form. Now, there are certain tools out there that will do that, and there's certain that ain't. So for example, I use Gravity Forms. That allows me to do it. I've got a pop-up plugin called Opt-in Monster that allows me to do it. And I've also got another tool which I recommend, which is a free tool, which doesn't have as much flexibility, which is called Yikes Easy Forms. Okay? Yikes Easy Forms will allow you to assign a tag to a form. So when they complete the form, when it goes to Mailchimp, it gets the information to Mailchimp and it gives the tag at the same time. So certainly what I'd recommend is that, unfortunately, it may be that the tool that you're using at the moment to create forms on your website doesn't give you that option. All right? So if you're doing something right, that is the biggest way of ensuring that your data is being transmitted in the right way and you're segmenting. All right?
Lots to learn, isn't there, Robin? And
always, never ending. I'm always learning, because Mailchimp keep changing a little thing and it's like, oh, that's new. It's like they haven't told me about it.
Well, I'm sure everybody's seen it in the chat room, but for the benefit of those who I know are going to be looking at the recording, because some of them haven't been able to join in this evening after all, from Lucy, I would highly recommend further training with Robin on tags and segmentation. I wasn't using landing pages or tags before, but had an in-depth training with Robin and now use tags with success. She puts in brackets, I think, but I'm sure it is. Not as daunting as you might think, well worth investing in a few hours further training to do it properly going forward. And it just comes back to the nub of marketing, which is communications after all, isn't it, Robin?
Definitely. I'm just diving in to actually see where I got where, because I'm just going into my database now. So where did I see Lucy? Where did she come? Where's she?
We can tell you a bit later. God, that hour's gone really very quickly, and you know, thank you as ever, Robin. I hope we can entice you back again to cover one or two things, because
I love this type of stuff. This is what takes me going. But
I'm saying it publicly, so you have to say yes, frankly.
No. yeah. Put me on the press. But no, I think the simplest answer is, if you have got any more questions, the best way to do it, to get them answered, is to go to the Facebook group. The Facebook group is giving a massive opportunity, but it's not just me in the Facebook group. There are other people in there as well. So even if I'm not in that group to answer your question, but please put it, if you want me to answer it, just tag your post with me. That is the best way to get some quick and easy answers to the stuff that you've got. And if you want to get into it more detail, if you want some help building a Mailchimp system that dovetails with your marketing, then obviously we can have a look at that.
And just to repeat it, it's Mailchimp Answers, isn't it? That's
Mailchimp Answers, or if you type in chimp.tips, in fact, I'll put this into the chat. I'll try and do the typical thing of talking and typing at the same time.
Well, whilst you do that, I'll just wrap up and we can just let everybody know on the chat line. But thanks again, Robin. Fantastic. That's it for the series, actually. We're actually taking a break next week, but we know that the webinars have proven to be really successful. And Joe and I are now going to be, from there on, going to be alternating a technical webinar one week, a marketing webinar the following week. So we've got lots of brilliant ideas, and do please let us know of some of the ideas, some of the topics you'd like us to cover as well. I'm sure and I hope we'll have Robin back again as well, because there's plenty to cover. Thanks for providing the backup as well when I went offline. But anyway,
my first webinar.
Exactly. But anyway, listen, thanks to everybody for attending, and also Robin, again, thank you very much indeed for all your very insightful information.
Glad to be here. Thanks very much, guys. Thank you, everybody.
No problem at all. Good night, everybody. Thanks.